Recognizing halves is the title of this. I'm pretty sure you probably have a pretty firm grasp of this. But the problem that we have with fractions is that different fractions can mean the same thing. You know, like when you see the number 8, it doesn't change. Like sometimes 8 means this or sometimes 8 means that or blah, blah, blah. With fractions, a lot of different ones mean the same thing. And if you're talking about 1/2 of something, let's do the old standard eating a pizza. You know, if you eat a half of a pizza, that means you've eaten a half of a pizza. But, I guess, no, let's not do that. Usually we cut pizzas into 5 pieces, I guess. Oh wait, sorry. Like that. So there's your pizza. Pepperoni, whatever is on it. Okay, but usually when you get the pizza from wherever, Little Caesars or Papa John's or wherever, very frequently though, they don't cut the pizza just in 2 pieces. They'll slice it, and a lot of times it'll look like this. Okay, and because it's cut into 8 pieces, does that not mean you can't eat a half of the pizza? No, you can still eat the half of a pizza, but in order to do it, you have to eat, instead of 1 big piece out of 2, you're going to eat 4 smaller pieces out of 8 of them. And that's the reason why 1/2 is the same thing as 4/8. Or maybe the pizza place cut it into 6. If you're going to eat half of a pizza that was cut into 6, how many pieces would you have to eat? Yeah, 3 out of the 6 pieces. So 3/6, 4/8, 1/2, they all mean the same thing, but they're different numbers, and sometimes it's confusing. The question I have for you is, how do you know if a fraction is the same as 1/2? Looking at these 3 examples I've given you, 1/2, 4/8, 3/6, what thing is true about all 3 of those that for any fraction, if you looked at it, you'd be able to say, well, yeah, that must be 1/2. Lance?
Because if you did 8, half of 8 is 4, and half 6 is 3.
Okay, so writing this down, like Lance said, if, we'll use math words, if the, what's the top number called? If the numerator, which is the top number, is half of, what's the bottom number called? The denominator. If the top number is half of the denominator, which is the bottom number, that means the fraction is equal to half. Fraction equals 1/2. So it doesn't matter how big the number is. You know, let's say I have 120. In order for a fraction to be equal to 1/2 that has 120 on the bottom as the denominator, what would the top have to be? For this fraction to be the same as 1/2, you cut a pizza into 120 pieces. How many pieces would you have to eat, Ben?
60.
60. So this one means 1/2. Or if your pizza had 5,000 pieces in it, and you ate half of it, how many would you have to eat? Wayne? It's a tougher one.
3,500. No, 2,500.
2,500, good. 2,500 over 5,000 is the same as the half. Now, with that being said, children, here's what the book wants you to catch from this. If you know that all of these fractions are the same as 1/2, you should be able to look at a fraction and say whether it's more or less than 1/2. Because if the top number is more than half of the bottom number, the fraction's gonna be more. If this was a 5/8, that means you ate more than half of the pizza. Or if this number was 3/8, that means you ate less than half of the pizza. So not only should you be able to recognize when the things are exactly 1/2, you should also be able to tell whether the fraction is bigger than 1/2 or smaller than 1/2. So we should probably play the bigger or smaller than game here. If I had 11/20, and I asked you if that fraction was more than 1/2, less than 1/2, or equal to 1/2, Isabel is going to tell me that that fraction is
More than 1/2.
more than 1/2. Why? Because the top is more than 1/2 of the bottom. More than 1/2. Because a lot of times what the book will do is they'll say, okay, here's my fraction 1/2. I'm comparing that to 30/70. And how do I know? Is 1/2 greater than, less than, or equal to 30/70? And how do I know and why do I care? You have to answer all those questions. Jaden, more or less than half? Is 1/2 more or less than 30/70?
More than.
More than. How do you know?
Because there's still 40 left.
Okay, half of this, the top number would have been 35, right? If it should be equal to half, so it's less than that, so it has to be smaller than that. And then why do you care? Because you want to get a good grade in math. That's why. It's always, the answer to why do you care is because you always want to get a good grade in math. How about 5/8 to 5/12? 5/8 compared to 5/12. Again, the first thing you do is see is one of them, how do the fractions compare to 1/2? 5/8 more than 1/2, less than 1/2, or equal to 1/2? Emily?
5/8 is greater.
Yeah, 5/8 is more than 1/2. 5/12 equal to more or less than 1/2?
Less.
Less than 1/2. So when you're comparing these two, you know the one that's more than 1/2 has to be bigger than the one that's less than 1/2. And why do you care, Emily? And why do you care? Lainey, why does Emily care?
Because she wants to get a good grade in math.
She wants to get a good grade in math. What about these two fractions? 17/34 compared to 23/46. More, greater than, less than, or equal to. How do you know and why do you care, Kate?
Less than,
Why less than?
because 23 is half.
So this is the same as a half, right? And 17/34 is
Oh, that's it.
17/34 is a half, so they are in fact equal. And why do you care, Kate?
Because I want to get a good grade.
Because you want to get a good grade in math. Everybody kind of clear on most of that stuff there? Good. I think you'll do well